Hello, detectives. Congratulations on making it this far. Inspector General McLeod here, ready to help you with case number 7. Now, case number 7 is going to be a short story. This is a little bit longer than you're used to, so it's a perfect time to introduce 3 critical reading strategies. These strategies are going to help you become a better detective and, not coincidentally, a better reader as well. So let's jump right into them. Make sure you're taking notes in your detective pad, and if you have questions, you can write those down in your pad as well, and you can ask me at a later time. So, rule number 1 that you need to write down: every detail matters. Let me explain. I want you to picture yourself as an author when you're considering this rule. And you're going to write a story, a short story. And in your short story, you have a character, and that character has an appearance. Now, it would be foolish of you if you were going to try to include every single detail of what that character looks like. Now, you might include some things. You might say, they're this tall, and you might describe, how big or skinny they are. You might give facial hair. Maybe they have some prominent facial features that you want to highlight. But you're probably only going to include 5 or 6 things. But the reality is, when you're thinking about the totality of someone's appearance, you could potentially discuss hundreds, maybe thousands of different things, right? I mean, you could talk about every hair on my arm, the freckles on our faces, every tooth has a different shape. There's so many different things that you could describe in a person, but that would be silly if you were to do that, if you were the author, right? So if you are an author, that means you have to make decisions about what details to include in your story and which details to exclude. And if you have to make such a conscientious decision, then we as the readers, as the detectives, we need to understand then that you chose the details specifically, that you had a reason to include some of the details while excluding most of them. And that's why every detail matters. We need to respect the author, and we need to assume that they provided us with the details that are important. So our job as a detective then is to write those details down or to make note of them. And the same thing, by the way, happens in a detective case. When a detective walks into a crime scene for the first time, they don't just look for, oh, there's the blood, and that's going to be my only clue. No, they walk in and they think that everything could be a potential clue. They find a piece of hair on the ground, they put it in a little bag, they send it to forensics. That little hair could be a clue. Everything could be a clue. The smudge that's on the wall, maybe there's a cracked picture, maybe there's some change on, lying on the floor, some lint. The detective considers everything as a detail, as an important detail, until the detective realizes that some of those details, some of those clues just don't matter. And the same thing for you as a critical reader. Every detail matters until it doesn't. And now you might be thinking, Mr. McLeod, you're confusing me now. You just contradicted yourself. But let me explain just a little bit. So the detective finds that piece of hair, and they say, yeah, this could be important. But then when they bring it to forensics, it comes back that was just a dog hair. And now what the detective has to do is they have to take that piece of knowledge and they have to kind of compare it or hold it up to the narrative that is happening or their particular purpose. Now, if you're a detective, you're trying to solve this murder. And the fact that this hair is a dog hair, that just doesn't seem to fit the narrative of your murder. It doesn't fit the big picture. Or that smudge that's on the wall that's red and you think it's blood, so you think it's a clue. Turns out that was just yesterday's cherry pie. Well, now all of a sudden, the detective has to make a decision. Does that clue really matter in this big picture within my purpose of trying to solve this case? Does it fit the narrative of my case? And they're probably going to decide that no, that smudge of cherry pie that's on the wall isn't really important. You're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to start by writing every clue down. But then as you read the story more and more, you're going to start to realize that some of the clues just don't really fit your purpose. Now, they might be important, right? Like I said, they're probably important because the author included them. But maybe the reason that the author mentioned the eyes were blue has nothing to do with your purpose, with your narrative that you're trying to create. Remember, you're trying to stop a murder here. And so if their eyes are blue, that might not, probably not, it just doesn't matter. So you're going to start with a ton of clues written down in your detective notepad, and then eventually I want to see some of those, probably a lot of those clues kind of crossed out. But some of those clues that you wrote down, I actually want to see a big star next to them. Those are the important clues. And how do you know which ones are important? Well, there's a lot of ways, but here's one of the best rules that I can give you. Not just to be a detective, but to be a reader. And not just for this unit, but really for the rest of your life. Remember this rule. If it's weird, it's important. Now, just like an author includes the details in a story, the author also chooses when to defy the reader's expectations. And the author knows what expectations we have. You have the same expectations that I have in life. If I'm walking down the street and you're walking with me and we hear a gunshot, we're probably both going to stop and go, that's weird. You never hear gunshots around here. And we're going to probably not just keep on walking. We're probably going to maybe talk about it. We're going to make some inferences. Maybe we're going to say things like, I wonder if there's a crime going on over there, or maybe there's a bank down there. It's a bank robbery, or maybe it's a shooting range. I don't know. But that's weird when something happens that you don't expect. The author did that intentionally. Now, if you're reading a piece of American literature, you would expect a normal American name, right? Like a common name, John Smith, Bob, Joe. And so when the author names the character something weird, remember the author chose to give that name. And if they're choosing to give them a strange name, a name that does not fit the normal expectations, then they're doing that for a really good reason. And so if they name the person, Duck Boat or something really crazy, you're not just going to read over it and go, oh, that's a weird name, and then you're going to keep going. No, you're going to go, whoa, why? Why would the author name him that person? So in your story, I need you to pay attention whenever one of the characters acts in a way that you think is not normal. You need to take note of that. You need to put a star next to it. You need to record it in your detective notepad, and you need to put some thought into that. Maybe write some notes down there. So those are our 3 rules, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it when we're done reading the stories and you guys solve the case. But for now, just remember, every detail matters, so I need to see a bunch of details written down in your notepad, and try to draw some connections between the details, right? Make some inferences, and eventually you're going to start crossing some of them out as you realize that some of the details don't matter for your particular purpose, for your narrative. But the ones that do matter, a lot of those are going to matter because they're just really strange. And the author is trying to get you to stop and think about something. So when the author wants you to think, make sure you actually do that, because that might be what helps solve your next crime. All right, detectives, until tomorrow, good luck.